The rope bit into Emma Hayes's wrist. Her K9 diesel hung beside her tactical harness, choking. 80 pounds of German shepherds suspended like a trophy nobody wanted to claim. 5 men circled below. They didn't know Diesel was badge K9-247, didn't know Emma was Captain Wyatt Hayes's daughter, and they sure as hell didn't know what a SEAL's daughter could do with just a rope in 60 seconds. Before we continue, subscribe right now. What happens next will restore your faith in justice, but only if you stay until the very end. Comment your state below. The warehouse stank of rust and old motor oil. Winter pressed against the corrugated metal walls, turning the air into something you could chew. Snow fell outside in thick, silent sheets covering Pine Ridge, Oregon, like God himself had decided the town needed forgetting. Emma's shoulders screamed. The rope had pulled her arms back at an angle that made breathing a negotiation. Every inhale was a choice. Every exhale was a promise she'd take another one. Diesel's eyes found hers in the dim light. The dog wasn't panicking. That was the thing about working K9s. They'd been trained to treat chaos like paperwork. Necessary, unpleasant, survivable. His chest rose and fell in controlled rhythm. His tactical harness, the one with K9-247 stitched across the side, had become a noose. The rope threaded through the D-ring, pulling upward, stealing his weight from the ground. But his eyes stayed on Emma, always on Emma. Landon Vance stepped closer. 28 years old, blonde hair gelled back like he was heading to a country club instead of a kidnapping. He wore a leather jacket that cost more than Emma's monthly salary and boots that had never seen honest work. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that belonged on men who'd never been told no. Men who thought consequences were for other people. "You should have listened," Landon said. His voice echoed off the metal beams above. The warehouse had been a lumber operation once, back when Pine Ridge still believed it could be something. Now it was just bones. Rusted machinery, broken windows. The kind of place where bad things happen because nobody was looking. Emma didn't answer. She'd learned silence from her father. Captain Wyatt Hayes, SEAL Team 3. The man who taught her that words were expensive, and most people couldn't afford them. Landon didn't like the silence. He stepped to Diesel and raised his hand. The slap echoed. Diesel yelped, a sharp, involuntary sound that cut through the cold air like a blade. Emma's jaw tightened. Her fingers curled into fists behind her back, nails digging into palms until she felt blood. "Control fear or fear controls you," her father's voice. Clear as the day he'd said it, teaching her to shoot when she was 12, teaching her to survive when she was 19 and he was already gone. "That's for biting my guy," Landon said, rubbing his knuckles. "You know how much hospital bills cost?" One of the other men laughed, thin, nervous, the kind of laugh that came from watching someone else do the cruel thing you didn't have the spine for. Emma counted them again. 5, 3 near the door, 2 close to Landon, all carrying. She'd seen the pistols tucked into waistbands, the shotgun leaning against a rusted oil drum. But men with guns got confident. Confidence made them sloppy. She tested the rope. The beam above was old wood, not steel, the kind that had been holding weight for 30 years and didn't appreciate the extra burden. She could feel the grain through the vibration in the line. If she could swing, if she could get her legs up. If she could, you thinking about escape, Landon's voice pulled her back. He was standing directly below her now, close enough that she could see the tiny scar on his chin, close enough to smell the cologne that cost more than her groceries. "Let me save you the effort," he continued. "Nobody's coming. Sheriff's bought, roads are dead, and your little K9 unit," he gestured to Diesel, "they think you're homesick." Emma's throat tightened. 2 weeks ago, she'd called into the station. Routine patrol near the Oregon-California border. Diesel had alerted on a shipping container. 50 kilograms of cocaine wrapped in vacuum-sealed bricks hidden inside crates labeled lumber supplies. She'd reported it. Sheriff Holland Vance had told her to stand down. DEA jurisdiction, he'd said. Let the feds handle it. But Emma had grown up around liars. She knew the shape of a bad order. So she'd gone back. Alone, Diesel at her side the way it had always been. The warehouse had been dark that night, colder. She'd used her phone camera to photograph the drugs, the serial numbers on the crates, the invoices with names she didn't recognize. She'd been about to leave when the lights came on. Landon Vance and 4 men, no masks, no hesitation. That was when she knew. They weren't worried about witnesses because they didn't plan on leaving any. Diesel had fought. 85 pounds of muscle and training and loyalty that didn't know how to quit. He'd taken down 2 men before the net came. Heavy-gauge steel mesh, the kind used for trapping animals. Emma had fought too. She put one man on the ground with a knee to the solar plexus, disarmed another with a wrist lock her father had drilled into her 1,000 times. But there were 5 of them, and only one of her. The last thing she remembered before the world went dark was Landon's boot coming toward her face. Now she was here, suspended, Diesel beside her, waiting for a bullet or a miracle, whichever came first. "My dad wants to talk to you," Landon said, pulling out his phone. "But I told him why bother. You already made your choice." He typed something, sent it, slid the phone back into his jacket. "He'll be here in an hour," Landon continued. "Until then, I think we should have a little fun." He walked to the oil drum, picked up the shotgun. Emma's pulse kicked. Not for herself, for Diesel. Landon racked the slide. The sound was mechanical, final, the kind of sound that ended conversations. "Here's the thing about dogs," Landon said, aiming at Diesel. "They're loyal, stupidly loyal. They'll die for you even when you're not worth it." Emma's voice came out raw. "Touch him and you're dead." Landon paused, then he laughed. A real one this time, the kind that came from genuine amusement. "You're hanging from a beam and you're threatening me." He shook his head. "I see where you get it. Your old man was dumb too." Emma went still. "What did you say?" Landon grinned. "Captain Wyatt Hayes, SEAL Team 3, died in Fallujah, right? IED, real hero stuff." He said the word hero like it tasted bad. "My dad told me about him, said he was a Boy Scout, always doing the right thing, always getting in the way." Emma's vision narrowed. Her father had died 17 years ago. She'd been 19, a sophomore in college studying criminal justice because she wanted to make him proud. The call had come at 2 a.m. She'd known before she answered. You always know. The officer on the other end had used words like sacrifice and honor and service, words that were supposed to make death sound noble. But death wasn't noble. It was just empty. "Don't," Emma said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that came before violence. "Don't say his name." Landon stepped closer. "Or what?" The warehouse door groaned. Everyone turned. A figure stood in the doorway, backlit by snow and weak winter light. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a worn brown leather jacket and boots that had seen real miles. In the silence, a dog's low growl rumbled. Not Diesel. Another dog, older, darker, moving with the deliberate patience of a creature that had already survived the worst the world could offer. One of Landon's men stepped forward. "Who the hell are you?" The man didn't answer right away. He walked into the warehouse like he owned it, slow, purposeful. His eyes swept the room with the kind of precision that came from training, the kind you didn't get from YouTube videos or weekend courses, the kind you earned overseas. His dog stayed at his heel, a German shepherd coat thick and black along the shoulders. The dog's right front leg carried a slight hitch. Old injury, but the eyes were sharp, clear. The man stopped 10 feet from Landon. "I heard a dog in there. That yow." "Dog," he said. His voice was gravel and frost. Sounded hurt. Landon raised the shotgun. "This is private property. Turn around." The man's gaze moved past Landon. Found Emma. Found Diesel. His jaw tightened. For just a second, something flickered across his face. Recognition. Memory, anger that had been buried so deep it had fossilized. Then it was gone. "I'll ask once," the man said. "Let them down." Landon laughed. "Or what, old man, see ya?" The man tilted his head slightly. "Or I'll put you down." 3 things happened at once. Landon swung the shotgun toward the stranger. The stranger moved, and the dog at his heel became a shadow with teeth. The stranger closed the distance in 2 strides. His hand caught the shotgun barrel, twisted it up and away. Landon's finger hit the trigger. The shot went high, punching through corrugated metal and winter sky. Before the echo faded, the stranger's elbow was in Landon's ribs. Landon folded. The shotgun clattered to the concrete. The stranger's dog hit one of the men near the door. Not barking, not growling. Just 80 pounds of controlled aggression that knew exactly where to bite and how hard. The man screamed, went down. The other men reached for their guns, too slow. The stranger moved like water, like something that had learned violence in places where hesitation was fatal. He caught one man's wrist, twisted it until bones popped, drove a knee into the man's thigh. The man dropped. Another swung a crowbar. The stranger ducked under it, stepped inside the swing, and drove his palm into the man's sternum. The impact sounded like a car door slamming. The man staggered back, gasped for air that wouldn't come. 60 seconds. That's all it took. 5 men on the floor, groaning, bleeding, learning the difference between confidence and competence. The stranger walked to where Emma hung. Up close, she could see the details. The gray threading his dark hair, the scar along his knuckles. The way his eyes stayed calm even though his chest was heaving. He pulled a knife from his belt. Folding blade. Worn handle. "Don't move," he said. Emma didn't. He cut the rope above her wrists in one smooth pull. She dropped into his arms. He caught her weight, lowered her to the concrete like she was made of something breakable. Then he moved to Diesel. The dog's eyes tracked him. Wary, calculating. "Easy," the stranger murmured. "I got you." He supported Diesel's weight with one arm, cut the rope with the other. Diesel hit the ground on all fours, wobbled once, then steadied. The stranger crouched, checked the dog's ribs, his breathing, the raw skin where the harness had dug in. "You'll live," he said. Diesel's tail gave one cautious thump. Emma rubbed her wrists. The skin was red, raw. She could still feel the rope like it was tattooed there. "Who are you?" she asked. The stranger stood, looked at her, really looked. His eyes caught on her face, her jawline, the shape of her nose. "Garrett Brennan," he said finally. "SEAL Team 3. Emma's breath stopped. "You knew my father." It wasn't a question. Garrett nodded once. "Wyatt Hayes." He said the name carefully, like it was something fragile. "Best man I ever served with." Behind them, Landon groaned, tried to sit up. Garrett's boot pressed down on his chest. Not hard, just enough to make a point. "Stay," Garrett said. Then he looked back at Emma. "We need to move. Now, something." Emma wanted to ask questions. They wanted to know how he'd found her, why he was here, what he remembered about her father. But Garrett was already walking toward the door. His dog, the one with the limp, moved beside him like a shadow. Diesel looked at Emma. Emma looked at the warehouse, at the 5 men on the ground, at the rope still hanging from the beam like a noose waiting for the next neck. She stood. Her legs shook. Her shoulders burned. But she stood. "Come," she said. Diesel followed. They stepped out into the snow. The cold hit like a fist. Emma's breath fogged. Her fingers were numb, but the air tasted clean, free. Garrett led them to an old pickup truck parked behind a stand of pine trees. Rust along the wheel wells, dent in the tailgate, the kind of vehicle that had earned its scars. He opened the passenger door. "Get in." Emma hesitated. "Where are we going?" Garrett looked at her. His face was weathered, hard, but his eyes held something else, something that looked like an old promise being kept. "Somewhere they can't find you," he said, "until we figure out how deep this goes." Emma climbed in. Diesel jumped onto her lap, heavy and warm and alive. Garrett's dog hopped into the truck bed without complaint. Garrett started the engine. It coughed once, then caught. As they pulled away, Emma looked back. The warehouse was already disappearing into the snow, like it had never existed. Like the last hour had been a bad dream. But her wrists still burned, and Diesel's breathing was still too fast. And somewhere in Pine Ridge, Sheriff Holland Vance was about to get a phone call that would change everything. Emma closed her eyes. Her father's voice came back. "Control fear, or fear controls you." She opened her eyes, looked at Garrett. "I need to finish this," she said. Garrett's hands tightened on the wheel. "I know. They're going to come after us. I know. The people might die." Garrett was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "People already died. Your father, my brothers. Good men who believed the system would protect them." He glanced at her. "The system doesn't protect anyone. People protect people." Emma felt something shift inside her chest, something that had been locked down for 17 years. Grief, anger, purpose. "Then let's protect people," she said. Garrett almost smiled. "Just like your old man." The truck disappeared into the storm. Behind them, Landon Vance pulled himself to his feet. Blood dripped from his nose. His ribs screamed. He fumbled for his phone. Dialed. 1 ring. 2. "Dad," he gasped, "we got a problem." On the other end, Sheriff Holland Vance listened, and then he made a decision that would cost him everything. But that's a story for the next part. For now, the snow kept falling. And in a truck heading deep into the Oregon wilderness, a K-9 officer and a broken SEAL were about to learn that the hardest battles aren't fought overseas. They're fought at home, against men who hide behind badges, against systems built on lies, against the kind of evil that wears a smile and a suit and thinks it's untouchable. Emma Hayes didn't know it yet, but she was about to become the thing her father had always believed she could be. Not a victim, not a survivor, a warrior. And Diesel K9-247 was going to make sure she lived long enough to prove it. The cabin sat 15 miles into the Cascade foothills where cell service went to seeing questions learned to stay quiet. Garrett pulled the truck up a narrow trail that wasn't on any map. Snow buried the tire ruts from last winter. Pine branches scraped the roof like fingers testing for weakness. Emma watched the trees thicken, watched civilization become memory. Diesel sat rigid on her lap. His breathing had steadied, but his muscles stayed tight. Ready, the way working dogs lived when the bus wasn't finished. Garrett's dog, the one with the limp, sat in the truck bed like a statue. Snow collected on his dark fur, but he didn't shake it off. Just watched the forest with eyes that had seen worse weather and harder days. The cabin appeared through the white, small, log construction, chimney releasing thin smoke that the wind tore apart before it could rise. Garrett killed the engine. Silence rushed in to fill the space. "Wait here," he said. He stepped out, circled the cabin, checked the windows, the door, the tree line, old habits, the kind that kept you breathing when everyone else stopped. After 2 minutes, he returned, opened Emma's door. Clear. Inside smelled like wood smoke and gun oil, and the particular loneliness of a man who'd stopped expecting company. One room, kitchenette in the corner, wood stove throwing heat. Bed against the far wall, table with 2 chairs, a single photo on the shelf above the stove. Emma saw it while Garrett locked the door behind them. 4 men in desert camouflage, younger, smiling. The kind of smile that came before you knew what the world cost. She recognized one face immediately, her father. Captain Wyatt Hayes, 32 years old in that photo, alive, whole, standing next to Garrett Brennan, who looked like he still believed in something. Emma's throat closed. Garrett saw where she was looking. "Ramadi," he said quietly. 2007. He moved to the stove, added wood. Diesel collapsed near the heat, finally allowing exhaustion to touch him. Garrett's dog Maverick limped inside and took position by the door, not resting, guarding. "Sit," Garrett told Emma. She sat. He pulled a first aid kit from under the sink, set it on the table, opened it with the efficiency of someone who'd done this in worse conditions. "Wrists," he said. Emma held them out. The rope burns were angry, red fading to purple, skin rubbed raw in places where she'd tested her bonds. Garrett cleaned them with antiseptic that stung like penance. His hands were steady, scarred, the kind of hands that had held rifles and brothers and too many things that didn't make it home. "Your father saved my life in Fallujah," Garrett said without looking up. "IED took out our convoy. I was pinned under a Humvee, fuel leaking. He pulled me out 30 seconds before it went up." He wrapped gauze around Emma's left wrist. 4 months later, he was dead. The words sat between them like something physical. Emma had heard the official story. Improvised explosive device. Patrol route in Fallujah. Captain Wyatt Hayes killed in action. Posthumous Bronze Star. Flag-draped coffin. But she'd never heard it from someone who was there. "I called him," she said. Her voice came out, smaller than she wanted. "The day he died. I was 19, just got accepted to the police academy. I was so excited I didn't think about the time difference. Didn't think about..." "Stop." Garrett's voice cut clean. He finished wrapping her right wrist, looked up. His gaze held steady, unflinching. The kind of honesty that came from seeing too much to bother with lies. "I was 50 feet from Wyatt when he took that call," Garrett said. "He stepped away from the vehicle so he could hear you better. Smiled when you told him about the academy. Biggest smile I'd ever seen on him." He closed the first aid kit. The IED was command detonated. Taliban watching from a building 200 meters out. "Could have hit any of us. Your call didn't kill him. Bad luck did. Bad timing. The same thing that kills everyone over there." Emma's eyes burned. "He was proud of you," Garrett continued. "Told everyone. Wouldn't shut up about it." His daughter, following in his footsteps. A tear tracked down Emma's cheek. Just one. She wiped it away fast. Garrett stood, walked to the window, looked out at snow and trees and nothing. "I came to Pine Ridge 3 years ago," he said. "After my wife died, cancer. I was in San Diego watching her disappear one cell at a time, and I couldn't do anything. Couldn't fight it, couldn't shoot it, couldn't carry her out of the kill zone." He was quiet for a moment. "When she was gone, I sold everything. Bought this place. Figured I'd disappear too." "But you didn't." "No," he turned to face her. "I heard it ba yam," he said simply. Heard him yelp. And I remembered every working dog I'd ever served with. Every handler who'd trusted those dogs with their life. His jaw tightened. I wasn't going to walk away from that. Emma looked at Diesel. The dog's eyes were half closed, but his ears tracked every sound. Still working, still protecting. They're going to come for us, Emma said. I know. Sheriff Vance controls the county, the courts, probably half the state police. I know. We can't win a straight fight. Garrett smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Then we don't fight straight. He moved to a cabinet, pulled out a hand-drawn map, spread it on the table. Pine Ridge and the surrounding territory rendered in pencil and precision. Topographic lines, creek beds, old logging roads, locations marked with X's. I've been mapping this area for 3 years, Garrett said. Every trail, every cache point, every place a man could hide or make a stand. His finger traced a route. We're here. Vance's main operation is here. Warehouse where they grabbed you is here. The lumber yard where they store product before moving it south is here. Emma leaned closer, studied the map, the routes, the choke points. You knew about the drugs. Suspected, saw trucks moving at odd hours, license plates that didn't match registrations. But I'm a civilian now. No jurisdiction, no authority. He looked at her. You have both. Had, Emma corrected. The moment I reported that shipment, I became a liability. Which means you're the most dangerous person in this county. Garrett pulled out a radio, old military grade, the kind that didn't need cell towers. We need allies, he said, people Vance can't touch. There aren't any. There are always people the powerful forget to buy. He was right. Emma thought about Pine Ridge, small town, 1,500 people. Most of them kept their heads down and their mouths shut because that's how you survived in a place where the sheriff decided who got pulled over and who got left alone. But there were others, people Vance had hurt, people who remembered. Quinn Bishop, Emma said suddenly, owns the Ponderosa bar on Route 7. Her husband died 3 years ago. Car accident, single vehicle, no witnesses. Garrett nodded slowly. Vance. She thinks so. Never said it out loud, but the way she looks at him when he comes in for coffee. Emma's hands curled into fists. She knows. Who else, Emma thought. Dalton Reed, Gulf War vet, lives in a trailer park on the east side. He came into the station 2 months ago, said he saw Vance meeting with someone at the old lumber yard, taking money. I wrote it up. Report disappeared. Vance buried it. Obviously. Garrett marked both locations on his map. We start there, he said. Tomorrow. Tonight we rest. But rest didn't come easy. Emma tried to sleep on the bed while Garrett took the floor. Diesel curled against her side. Maverick stayed by the door. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the rope, felt it cutting into her wrists, heard Landon's voice saying her father's name like it was a joke. At 2 a.m, she gave up, sat at the table. Garrett was already awake, sitting in the dark, cleaning a pistol by touch. Can't sleep, he asked. Can you? Not in 8 years. He reassembled the weapon, slid it into a holster. Your father used to say the hardest part wasn't the fighting, Garrett said. It was the waiting, the hours before dawn when your brain tried to convince you that you'd already lost. How did he deal with it? He'd check his gear, then check it again. Then he'd find whoever looked the most scared and tell them a joke. Terrible jokes, the kind that made you groan. But it worked. Reminded everyone we were still human. Emma almost smiled. Tell me one. Garrett shook his head. I don't remember them, only that they were awful. Silence settled. Then Garrett said, he'd be proud of you. What you did, reporting the drugs even when your boss told you not to. That took spine. It got me hung from a beam. It got you closer to the truth than anyone else has been in 20 years. Emma looked at the map still spread on the table. What if we can't stop him, Vance? What if he's too deep, too connected? Garrett stood, walked to the window. Dawn was hours away, but the snow had stopped. Stars punched through the clouds in hard, bright points. Then we make enough noise that someone bigger than Vance has to pay attention, he said. FBI, DEA, State Attorney General. We throw rocks until something breaks. And if nothing breaks, Garrett turned to face her, then we break them ourselves. Morning came cold and clear. They ate in silence. Canned soup heated on the stove. Coffee that tasted like it had been waiting for purpose. Then they moved. Garrett drove. Emma sat passenger, both dogs in the back. First stop was the Ponderosa bar, small building, faded paint, neon sign that said open, but only the O and N still worked. Inside was dark, smelled like old beer and regret. 3 customers at the bar, all men, all old enough to remember when Pine Ridge had jobs. Behind the bar stood Quinn Bishop, 32, red hair pulled back, tattoo on her forearm that said Semper Fi. She'd served. Marines, deployed twice before she came home and married a man who died too young under circumstances nobody believed. She saw Emma and her expression didn't change. "We're closed," Quinn said. "Door says open," Emma replied. "Door's a liar." The three men at the bar turned, looked at Emma, at Garrett, started to stand. "Sit," Garrett said. Something in his voice made them reconsider. They sat. Quinn came around the bar. She was tall, strong, moved like someone who'd learned to throw punches before she learned to take orders. "You're the K-9 cop," Quinn said. "The one who's supposed to be homesick." "Supposed to be?" Quinn's eyes flicked to Emma's wrists, the gauze, the bruising that showed around the edges. "You want to tell me what happened, or are we going to dance around it?" "Holland Vance is running drugs through Pine Ridge," Emma said. "Has been for years. I found his warehouse. He tried to kill me." The bar went silent. One of the men at the bar stood up, dropped cash, left without a word. Quinn watched him go. Then she looked back at Emma. "You got proof of photos, documentation, enough to bury him if I can get it to the right people." "Right people" meaning not local, meaning FBI. Quinn was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My husband found out about Vance, the drugs, the money. He was going to report it." 2 days later, his truck went off County Road 12, rolled 4 times. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Investigators said he was drunk. Her voice stayed flat, controlled. Tom didn't drink, not since his second deployment. PTSD made alcohol dangerous and he knew it. "Vance killed him," Emma said. "I know." "Help me prove it." Quinn looked at Garrett. "Who are you, kid?" "Garrett Brennan. I knew Emma's father." "SEAL was." Quinn nodded slowly. The kind of nod that said she recognized the weight that word carried. "What do you need?" she asked. "Somewhere to meet," Emma said. "Somewhere Vance doesn't own, and anyone else who might want to see him fall." Quinn thought about it. Then she pulled out her phone and made 2 calls, didn't ask permission. "Tonight," she said. 8 o'clock, my place, back room. She wrote an address on a napkin, slid it across the bar. "You get yourself killed before, then I'm going to be pissed." Emma took the napkin. "I'll do my best." Outside, the sun was higher, but the cold hadn't quit. Garrett started the truck. "Next stop," Emma asked. "Dalton Reed." They found him at the trailer park on the east edge of town. Rows of aluminum boxes that had given up pretending to be homes. Dalton's was at the end. American flag on a pole that needed paint. Pickup truck older than Emma. Dalton himself was 70. White hair, face like leather that had been left in the sun too long. He sat on the steps, wearing a jacket with army stitched over the heart. Garrett got out first. Dalton's eyes narrowed. Then he saw the way Garrett moved. The posture, the awareness. "Military," Dalton asked. "SEAL." "Hoo-ah." Dalton stood, shook Garrett's hand. "Dalton Reed, 1st Cavalry, Desert Storm." "Garrett Brennan." Dalton looked past him to Emma. "You're the K-9 officer, the one who took my statement about Vance." "Yes, sir." "Figured that report got buried." "It did." Dalton nodded like he'd expected nothing less. "You here to do something about it, or just collecting more paper nobody reads?" "We're going to take him down," Emma said, "but we need help." Dalton laughed, sharp, bitter. "Take down Holland Vance, girl. He owns this town, owns the mayor, owns the judges. Hell, probably owns half the state police. Which is why we need people he can't own." Garrett said. Dalton studied him. "You got a plan? Working on it. You got proof? Enough." Dalton was quiet. Then he looked at Emma. "Your father was Wyatt Hayes." Emma blinked. "How did you know?" "Saw your name on the station roster. Put 2 and 2 together." "I served with a Hayes in Saudi. Different war. Same blood, probably." "You got that look. The one that says quitting ain't in the manual." He sat back down on the steps. "I'll help, but I'm 70 years old. Can't run, can't fight, can barely see without glasses." "You can testify," Emma said. "You saw Vance take money. That's evidence? Evidence that gets me killed. We'll protect you." Dalton looked at Maverick. The dog sat patiently by the truck. Old, scarred, still ready. "That's your dog?" Dalton asked Garrett. "Yeah. He's seen combat 2 tours, Dalton nodded. "Then I guess if he's willing to go another round, I can too." They left Dalton with the same address, same time. By noon, Emma's phone buzzed. She'd kept it off since the warehouse. Now she powered it on just long enough to check messages. 17 missed calls, all from the Pine Ridge Police Department. 3 voicemails. She played the first one. Sheriff Vance's voice. Smooth, concerned. Officer Hayes, this is Sheriff Vance. We're worried about you. You missed your shift. Please call in and let us know you're safe. The second voicemail was different. Emma, this is your last chance. Come in. We can work this out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The third wasn't from Vance. It was a recorded message from dispatch. All units. Bolo for Emma Hayes, armed and dangerous, wanted for assaulting an officer and theft of department property. Approach with caution. Emma's hands shook. Garrett saw her face. What is it? They have put out a warrant. I'm wanted. For what? Assaulting an officer, theft. Garrett's jaw tightened. He's covering his tracks, making you the criminal. Emma powered the phone off, pulled the battery. Now every cop in the state is looking for me. Good. Emma stared at him. How is that good? Because it means Vance is scared. He's making moves. Scared people make mistakes. At 6 o'clock, Quinn called Garrett's radio. We got a problem, she said. Vance's men are at the bar, asking questions, showing your picture. Emma and Garrett looked at each other. We need to move the meeting, Garrett said into the radio. Where? Garrett thought for a moment. The old church on Pine Ridge Road, the one that burned down 5 years ago. Nobody goes there. I know it. Spread the word, same time. Roger that. At 8 o'clock, they gathered in the burned shell of what used to be St. Michael's Church. No roof, charred pews, walls blackened by fire. But the stone foundation was solid and the location was isolated. 6 people stood in the nave. Quinn, Dalton, a kid who couldn't have been more than 18, 2 women Emma didn't recognize, and a man in his 50s with nervous hands. Emma stepped forward. Thank you for coming. The kid spoke first. His voice cracked. I'm Sawyer. I saw Landon Vance kill a man 3 months ago, outside a bar in Reading. Shot him over a $50 debt. I recorded it on my phone. One of the women stepped forward. 45. Gray streaks in her dark hair, eyes that had cried too much. Beth Carver. My brother died from an overdose last year. Pills traced back to Vance's operation. The police closed the case in the 2 days, called it accidental. The other woman was younger, 30 maybe. She wore a business suit like armor. Claire Winters. I own a real estate office in town. Vance has been extorting me for protection money, $5,000 a month, for 3 years. I have bank records. The nervous man spoke last. Frank Morrison. Vance owns my mortgage and my business loan. He uses the debt as leverage. Do what he says or lose everything. His hands shook. I'm tired of being afraid. Emma looked at each of them. 6 people, all damaged by the same man, and all willing to risk everything to stop him. We're going to bring Vance down, Emma said, but we need to do this right. We need evidence that can't be dismissed. Testimony that can't be buried. Quinn spoke up. My brother works for the FBI in Portland. I sent him everything you gave me. The photos, the warehouse location. He's building a case. Emma felt something shift in her chest. Hope, real hope. How long, she asked. 72 hours. They need to coordinate with DEA, get federal warrants, build an airtight case. 3 days, Garrett said. We need to stay hidden for 3 days. And then, Dalton asked, and then we draw Vance out. Make him come to us. Get him on record admitting everything. Sawyer's hands shook worse. He'll kill us. Not if the FBI is listening, Quinn said. Emma pulled out a small device from her pocket. Digital recorder. Voice activated. The kind used in undercover operations. We set up a meeting. I offer to trade the evidence for safe passage out of Oregon. Vance won't be able to resist. He'll want to handle it personally. And when he comes, Beth asked, the FBI will be waiting. The group fell silent. Then Dalton said, I'm in. Quinn nodded. Me too. One by one they agreed, even Sawyer, though his voice barely worked when he said it. Emma felt the weight of their trust settle on her shoulders. These people were risking everything because they believed she could finish what her father had started. She wouldn't let them down. At midnight, Emma sat with Garrett in the cabin. Diesel slept by the fire. Maverick kept watch by the door. You think this will work? Emma asked. Has to. That's not an answer. Garrett looked at her. Your father once told me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else matters more. What mattered to him? People who couldn't protect themselves. Emma stared at the fire. I want Vance to pay for what he did. To my father. To this town. To all of them. He will. How can you be sure? Because I've seen what you're made of, and it's the same thing your father was made of. Steel and stubbornness, and a refusal to quit when quitting would be easier. Emma's eyes burned, but she didn't look away from the flames. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Your father taught me that. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Emma said, Tell me about him. Something I don't know. Garrett thought about it. He carried a photo of you in his helmet. Every mission, every patrol. I asked him once why he risked it. Moisture could ruin it. He said seeing your face reminded him why he was there, what he was protecting. Emma's breath caught. I never knew that. He wanted to tell you himself, planned to when he got home, but he never made it home. Emma closed her eyes, breathed through the grief that never quite left. When she opened them again, Garrett was watching her. Tomorrow we make the call, he said. Set the trap. After that, there's no going back. I know. You ready? Emma looked at Diesel, at Maverick, at the photo of her father on the shelf. Yeah, she said. I'm ready. The next morning, Emma used Garrett's military radio, broadcast on the frequency she knew Vance monitored. Her voice stayed calm, professional. This is Officer Emma Hayes. I have evidence of Sheriff Holland Vance's criminal enterprise. I'm willing to trade it for guaranteed safe passage out of Oregon and $25,000. You have 12 hours to respond on this frequency. She released the button. Static filled the silence. Then a voice, smooth, confident. Officer Hayes, this is Sheriff Vance. I'm glad you've come to your senses. Do we have a deal? We do. Where do you want to meet? I'll send coordinates in 6 hours. You come alone. No deputies, no tricks. Of course, the transmission ended. Garrett looked at her. He won't come alone. I know, but the FBI will be there, hidden, recording everything. And if something goes wrong, Emma checked her service weapon, the Glock 19 she'd carried for 7 years. Then we improvise. At 2 in the afternoon, Emma's world shifted. Quinn called the radio. Her voice was tight, scared. Emma, you need to come to the bar, now. What happened? Just come, alone. Emma looked at Garrett. It's a trap, he said. Maybe, but I need to know. Then I'm coming with you. They drove fast, Diesel and Maverick in the back. The Ponderosa bar looked empty from the outside. No cars, no lights. Emma got out slowly, hand on her weapon. Garrett covered her from the truck, rifle across his lap. Emma pushed through the door. Inside it was dark except for a single light over the bar. Quinn stood behind it, hands raised. And sitting at the bar back to Emma was a man in a suit. He turned, not Vance, someone else. 50, dark hair graying at the temples, sharp eyes, federal bearing. Officer Hayes, he said. I'm Special Agent Marcus Delacroix, FBI. Emma's hand stayed on her weapon. Prove it. He pulled out credentials. Badge, ID, everything checked. Quinn's brother sent me, Delacroix said. We've been building a case against Vance for 8 months. Your evidence accelerated our timeline. Emma lowered her hand. Why didn't Quinn tell me you were coming? Because I asked her not to, need-to-know basis. Quinn spoke from behind the bar. I'm sorry, Emma. He showed up an hour ago, said it was urgent. Delacroix stood. We have a problem. Vance knows we're coming. He has someone inside the Portland field office. We don't know who yet, but our operation is compromised. Emma's stomach dropped. So the meeting is a trap. He's not coming to pay you. He's coming to kill you and everyone who's helped you. Then we call it off. No, Delacroix's voice was hard. We move up the timeline. Tonight, we turn his trap into ours. How? Delacroix pulled out a map. The old lumber yard marked in red. You broadcast new coordinates. Tell Vance the meeting is happening now, 6 o'clock, before he can organize. He'll still bring men. Let him. We'll have 30 federal agents in position. The moment he admits to anything on tape, we move in. Emma studied the agent's face, looking for lies, found only determination. What do you need from me? She asked. Wear a wire, keep him talking, get him to confess to the drugs, the murders, especially your father. Emma's chest tightened. My father, Quinn told us what you learned, that Vance ordered the hit. If we can get him to admit it on tape, it's conspiracy to commit murder of a federal service member. Life in prison, no parole, no deals. Emma looked at Quinn. Her friend nodded. I trust him, Quinn said, and we're out of time. Emma made her decision. Okay, let's do it. At 5 o'clock, Emma stood in front of the burned church, a wire taped to her ribs, Delacroix's team hidden in the tree line, Garrett beside her, Maverick and Diesel at their feet. She keyed the radio. Change of plans, Vance. Meeting is now, 6 o'clock, old lumber yard on Route 9. Come now, or the deal is off. Silence. Then Vance's voice, tight, controlled. You're making a mistake, Officer Chase. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. She clicked off. Looked at Garrett. Last chance to walk away, he said. Not a chance. They drove to the lumberyard as the sun started to set. The place was exactly as Garrett had described. Rusted equipment, collapsed sheds, perfect kill zone. Delacroix's voice came through Emma's earpiece. We're in position. 32 agents. Perimeter secure. You get him talking, we'll handle the rest. Emma stepped into the center of the yard. Alone, visible. The bait. At 6:15, headlights appeared. 5 SUVs black. Expensive. They pulled in formation. Professional, military. Doors opened. Vance stepped out, and behind him came 20 armed men. Emma's pulse kicked, but she held her ground. Vance walked forward, stopped 15 feet away. Officer Hayes, he said, you've caused me considerable trouble. That was the idea. Where's the evidence? Where's my money? Vance smiled, cold, reptilian. There is no money. There never was. You're going to give me everything you have, and then you're going to disappear. Quietly. Emma's hand moved toward her weapon. 20 rifles snapped up. Vance raised a hand. Not yet. I want to know something first. What? Why couldn't you just look away like every other cop in this county? Why did you have to be like your father? Emma's jaw clenched. Don't talk about my father. Why not? I knew Wyatt Hayes better than you think. Here it was, the moment. Emma kept her voice steady. What does that mean? Vance stepped closer. Enjoying this. It means your father was investigating my operation back in '09. Before his deployment, he had evidence, photos, testimony. Was going to hand it all to the DEA when he got back from Iraq. Emma forced herself to breathe. You're lying. Am I? Vance's smile widened. Ask yourself why a SEAL with 2 months left on his tour volunteered for extra patrols in Fallujah. Why he was on that road at that exact time. The Wire was getting all of this, every word. I made a phone call, Vance continued, almost proud, to a contractor with Taliban connections, gave him your father's route, the timing. The IED wasn't random, Officer Hayes. Emma's vision narrowed. You killed him. I removed an obstacle. Vance shrugged. Same thing I'm about to do with you. In her ear, Delacroix's voice exploded. We have it. Move, move, move. The tree line erupted with light, spotlights, sirens, federal agents pouring from cover. FBI, drop your weapons. Vance's face went white. His men looked at each other, started lowering rifles, all except one. Landon Vance, he raised his pistol. Aimed at Emma. You destroyed everything. The shot came from the tree line. Landon's gun spun from his hand. He screamed, dropped to his knees. Garrett's voice on the radio. Target neutralized. FBI agents swarmed. Cuffed Vance, cuffed his men. Delacroix walked to Emma. You did it. That recording is going to put him away forever. Emma couldn't speak. She was staring at Vance, at the man who'd killed her father. Vance met her eyes one last time. This isn't over, then he said. Emma stepped closer, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. Yeah, she said quietly. It is. They led him away. The last she saw of Holland Vance was the back of his silver head disappearing into a federal transport. Emma's legs gave out. Garrett caught her. Easy. Is it over? The arrest is. The rest takes time. Quinn appeared. Dalton, Beth, Sawyer, all of them alive, all of them free. Emma looked at each of them. Thank you, she said. Thank you, Quinn replied, for having the guts to stand up. As the federal vehicles drove away, Emma stood in the lumberyard with Garrett and both dogs. The sun had set. Stars were coming out. What happens now? She asked. Now you testify. Help put him away. Then you figure out what comes next. Emma looked down at Diesel. The dog sat at her feet. Tired, bruised, but whole. I think I know what comes next, she said. Garrett waited. A training center, Emma said, for K9s and their handlers, veterans who need purpose, dogs who need second chances. Garrett smiled, really smiled, for the first time since she'd met him. Your father would have loved that. I know. They walked back to the truck. Behind them, the lumberyard settled into darkness. The fight was done, but the work was just beginning, and Emma Hayes was ready for it. 3 months felt like 3 years. Emma sat in the witness room of the federal courthouse in Portland. White walls, fluorescent lights. The kind of space designed to make you forget there was a world outside. Through the small window, she could see rain. February in Oregon. Cold, gray, endless. Garrett sat beside her, silent, present. The way he'd been for 90 days of depositions and interviews and federal agents asking the same questions in 17 different ways. Diesel lay at Emma's feet. The dog had recovered from surgery. Slower now, more careful. The scar along his abdomen hidden by fur, but Emma knew it was there. She'd traced it with her fingers 100 times, a reminder of how close she'd come to losing him. Maverick sat by the door, always guarding. The old dog's limp was more pronounced these days, but he refused to quit, refused to rest while there was still work to do. "They're ready for you," the bailiff said. Emma stood, smoothed her shirt. The formal uniform felt wrong after months in flannel and jeans. But this was a courtroom. Appearances mattered. The badge on her chest caught the light. She'd resigned from Pine Ridge PD, but Special Agent Delacroix had arranged for her to be sworn in as a federal consultant. Temporary, just for the trial. It meant she could testify as a law enforcement officer, not a civilian with an axe to grind. "You got this," Garrett said quietly. Emma nodded, walked through the door into the courtroom. Federal District Court, Eastern District of Oregon. Judge Sarah Hollenbeck presiding. The room was packed. Press in the back rows. Cameras weren't allowed, but sketch artists worked fast, capturing faces for the evening news. Victims' families filled the middle section. Quinn sat with Dalton. Beth held hands with her sister. Sawyer sat alone, looking older than his 18 years. Law enforcement took up the left side. Federal agents, state police. Even a few deputies from neighboring counties who'd never trusted Vance but couldn't prove anything. And at the defense table sat Holland Vance, orange jumpsuit, shackles at wrists and ankles. The silver hair looked dull under fluorescent lights. The expensive suits were gone. The power stripped away. He looked smaller, older, human. Beside him sat Landon Vance. Different table, different lawyer. His right hand was bandaged where Garrett's bullet had passed through. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. Emma walked to the witness stand. The bailiff approached with a Bible. "Raise your right hand," Emma did. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" "I do." "Please be seated." Emma sat. The prosecutor stood. Rebecca Chen, federal prosecutor, 15 years experience putting bad people in cages. She'd built her career on cases like this. Complex. High profile, the kind that made or broke reputations. She was small, precise, moved like a surgeon, every word calculated. "Officer Hayes," Chen began, "can you tell the court what happened on the night of November 15th? Emma took a breath and told the truth, all of it. She started with the warehouse, the initial investigation that had led her there, finding the cocaine, photographing the evidence, the decision to go back alone because she didn't know who to trust. She described the ambush, Landon Vance and his men, the fight, Diesel defending her until the net came down, the rope around her wrists, the beam above, the feeling of being suspended, helpless, the way Landon had hit Diesel, the way she'd counted her breaths and planned her escape even while hanging. The jury leaned forward. Emma described Garrett's arrival, the rescue, the dogs working together, the escape into the forest. She talked about the cabin, learning the truth about her father's death, gathering allies, people Vance had hurt who were willing to risk everything to stop him. She described the wire, the recording device taped to her ribs, standing in the lumberyard knowing 20 armed men were coming, the fear, the focus, Vance's confession. "And during your confrontation with Sheriff Vance at the lumberyard," Chen said, "what specifically did he tell you about your father?" Emma's hands tightened on the armrests. This was the moment that mattered most. "He said he'd ordered the hit, the IED that killed Captain Wyatt Hayes in Fallujah. He told me he'd given my father's patrol route to a Taliban contractor. He said the timing, the location. Everything was planned." Emma's voice stayed steady. "He said my father was investigating his drug operation, that my father had evidence, was going to turn it over to the DEA after his deployment, so Vance had him killed." The courtroom was silent, not a cough, not a whisper. Chen walked to the evidence table, picked up a small device. "Is this the recording device you wore that night?" "Yes." "And this recording was made while you were acting in your capacity as a law enforcement officer cooperating with an ongoing federal investigation?" "Yes." Chen nodded to the bailiff. "Play Exhibit 47. The speakers crackled. Then Vance's voice filled the courtroom. Clear, confident, damning. I made a phone call to a contractor with Taliban connections. Gave him your father's route, the timing. The IED wasn't random, Officer Hayes. It was a contract. Emma's own voice on the recording. You killed him. Vance's reply. I removed an obstacle. Same thing I'm about to do with you. The recording stopped. The silence that followed was heavier. Chen turned to the jury. The defense will claim this recording was obtained through entrapment. That Officer Hayes provoked these statements. But the law is clear. When a suspect voluntarily confesses to a crime while being lawfully recorded by a law enforcement officer, that confession is admissible. She looked at Emma. Thank you, Officer Hayes. No further questions. The defense attorney stood. Marcus Wright, 60 years old, silver hair, $5,000 suit even in a courtroom where his client wore orange. He'd built a career defending the indefensible. Drug lords, corrupt politicians, men who thought money could buy innocence. Officer Hayes, Wright began. His voice was smooth, practiced. You've testified that Sheriff Vance confessed to ordering your father's death, but you had a personal relationship with your father, correct? He was my father, yes. And you've carried anger about his death for 17 years. I've carried grief. There's a difference. Wright smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Grief can cloud judgment. Make us hear what we want to hear. See patterns that aren't there. The recording doesn't lie. The recording captures what you led Sheriff Vance to say. You provoked him, manipulated him into making statements that fit your predetermined narrative. Emma leaned forward. I asked him questions. He chose to answer. He chose to confess. Nobody forced those words out of his mouth. You were wearing a wire as part of an FBI sting operation, an operation designed to entrap my client. Entrapment requires inducing someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. Your client had been committing crimes for 20 years. We just finally caught him. Wright's smile tightened. You resigned from the Pine Ridge Police Department, didn't you? After my superior tried to have me murdered. Yes. So you're a disgraced former officer with a personal vendetta against my client. Emma's jaw clenched. I'm a law enforcement officer who did her job. I found evidence of criminal activity. I reported it. I gathered witnesses. I wore a wire to get a confession. That's not a vendetta. That's police work. Wright opened his mouth to respond. Judge Hollenbeck cut him off. Mr. Wright, unless you have actual questions for this witness instead of speeches for the jury, we're done here. Wright glanced at his notes. No further questions, Your Honor. Emma stepped down from the stand. She walked past Vance's table. He looked up as she passed. Their eyes met. For just a second, Emma saw something in his face. Not remorse, not quite, but recognition. The understanding that he'd lost, that everything he'd built was ashes. Emma kept walking. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The prosecution presented 43 witnesses. Financial records showing millions in drug money laundered through legitimate businesses. Wiretap recordings of Vance coordinating shipments. Testimony from his own men who'd taken deals to testify against him. Dalton Reed testified about seeing Vance accept cash from known drug traffickers. Sawyer played the video he'd recorded of Landon Vance shooting a man over a $50 debt. Beth Carver brought medical records showing her brother's overdose was from drugs traced back to Vance's operation. Quinn Bishop testified about her husband's death. The suspicious circumstances. The investigation that went nowhere because Vance controlled it. Claire Winters brought bank statements showing the protection money she'd paid. $5,000 a month for 3 years. $15,000 total. Frank Morrison testified about the mortgages Vance held, the way he used debt as leverage to control people. The evidence was overwhelming, a mountain of paper and testimony and recorded confessions that buried Vance under the weight of his own crimes. The defense tried everything. They argued entrapment, claimed the FBI had overstepped, questioned the chain of custody on evidence, attacked the credibility of witnesses who'd taken plea deals. None of it stuck. The jury saw through it. 12 people, 8 women, 4 men, ages ranging from 25 to 70, different backgrounds, different politics, different lives, but united in one thing: they believed the evidence. After 6 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury on a Friday afternoon. Emma waited in a hotel room 3 blocks from the courthouse. Garrett sat by the window, reading a book about dog training. Maverick dozed at his feet. Diesel lay on the bed beside Emma. She scratched his ears absently. The dog's breathing was steady, calm. He'd learned to sleep anywhere, anytime. The mark of a good working dog. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. Jury's back, 4 hours. Emma's stomach tightened. 4 hours was fast. Fast could mean anything. She looked at Garrett. They have a verdict. He closed the book. Then let's go finish this. The courtroom was packed again. More people than before. Word had spread. This was the moment. Emma sat in the front row. Garrett beside her, Quinn on her other side, Dalton behind them, all the people who'd stood up. Judge Hollenbeck entered. All rise. Everyone stood. The judge sat, gestured for everyone else to do the same. Bring in the jury. The 12 filed in. None of them looked at Vance. That was a tell. Emma had learned it during her years in law enforcement. When a jury couldn't look at the defendant, it usually meant guilty. The foreman stood, a woman in her 50s, school teacher, mother of 3. She'd been taking notes throughout the trial. Madam Foreman, the judge said, has the jury reached a verdict? We have your honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit the murder of a federal service member, how do you find guilty? Emma's breath caught. The foreman continued. On the charge of drug trafficking, how do you find guilty? On the charge of racketeering, guilty. Money laundering and guilty. Obstruction of justice, guilty. 15 charges total, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Not cheering, that would be inappropriate, but a collective exhale. Relief, justice. The judge banged her gavel. Order, I will have order. The room quieted. Vance sat motionless. His lawyer whispered something. Vance didn't respond, just stared at the table. Landon's verdict came next. Guilty on all counts except the murder conspiracy. He'd participated in the trafficking, the violence, but he hadn't ordered the hit on Wyatt Hayes. That was all his father. Judge Hollenbeck set sentencing for 2 weeks. Emma walked out of the courthouse into cold February rain. Quinn hugged her. We did it. Yeah, we did. Dalton shook her hand. His grip was still strong despite his age. Your father would be proud. I hope so. Sawyer stood awkwardly nearby, not sure what to say. Emma pulled him into a hug. Thank you for being brave. The kid's eyes went wet, but he didn't cry. Thank you for believing me. Emma spent the next 2 weeks at Garrett's cabin. They didn't talk much about the trial, just existed in the same space. Chopping wood, fixing the roof, training the pond, simple work, honest work, the kind that lets your brain rest after months of testimony and lawyers and reliving trauma. One evening, Garrett made dinner, venison stew, bread from scratch. The cabin smelled like home. They ate in comfortable silence. After Emma washed dishes while Garrett dried. You thought about what's next, he asked. Some. And Emma set down a plate, looked out the window at the forest. I want to build something, a training center for K9s and their handlers, specifically for veterans who need purpose. Garrett nodded slowly, like your father would have wanted, like he deserved. You have a location in mind. Here, Oregon, somewhere with space, where veterans can come and heal and learn and find a reason to keep going. Garrett dried another plate. You'll need instructors, someone who knows how to train both the boats and the people. Emma looked at him. You offering while I'm suggesting. She smiled. Then I'm accepting. The morning of sentencing, Emma woke early, dressed in her formal uniform one last time. After today, she'd never wear it again. She'd already decided this chapter was closing. A new one was beginning. Garrett drove them to Portland. The courthouse steps were crowded with media, cameras, reporters shouting questions. Emma walked past all of it. Inside the courtroom was even more packed than before. Every seat filled, people standing in the back. The bailiffs had to turn people away. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Justice. Judge Hollenbeck entered. The room stood. She sat, banged her gavel once. Mr. Vance, stand. Holland Vance stood. Shackles rattled. He'd aged 10 years and 3 months. The silver hair was thinner. His face gaunt. Prison didn't suit him. Judge Hollenbeck leaned forward. In my 30 years on the bench, I have seen evil in many forms. Corporate malfeasance, organized crime, terrorism. Violence both random and calculated. But what you did, Mr. Vance, is particularly insidious. Her voice was steady, cold. You took an oath to protect your community, to serve justice, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. And you weaponized that oath. You used your badge as a shield for criminal enterprise. You destroyed families, ended lives, corrupted an entire institution. She paused. You ordered the death of Captain Wyatt Hayes, a decorated Navy SEAL. A man who served his country with honor and distinction. A father, a hero. You had him killed because he threatened your profits, because he represented everything you were not. Honest, brave, selfless. Vance's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. That alone warrants the maximum sentence under federal law, the judge continued. But your crimes extend far beyond one murder. You trafficked poison into communities. You corrupted law enforcement. You made people afraid to seek help because you were supposed to be the help. She opened a folder. The law requires that I consider mitigating factors. Your age, your lack of prior criminal record, your contributions to the community. She looked at him. I find no mitigating factors. Your age is not an excuse. Your clean record was a facade, and your contributions were paid for with blood money. She closed the folder. On the charge of conspiracy to commit the murder of a federal service member, I sentence you to life in prison without possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent. On the charges of drug trafficking, racketeering, money laundering, and obstruction of justice, I sentence you to 45 years on each count to run consecutively. The math was simple. Life plus 180 years. Holland Vance would die in prison. He would never see the sun as a free man again. Never eat a meal that wasn't served on a tray. Never sleep in a bed that wasn't bolted to the floor. The judge turned to Landon. Mr. Landon Vance, stand. Landon stood. His hands shook. The bandages were off now, but his right hand still didn't work properly. Nerve damage from the bullet. You're 28 years old, the judge said. Young enough to have a future, but that future will not include freedom for a very long time. She consulted her notes. You were complicit in every crime your father committed. You assaulted a law enforcement officer, participated in attempted murder, trafficked controlled substances, obstructed justice. She looked at him. But unlike your father, you did not order the death of Captain Hayes. You were following orders, not out of fear, but out of greed and entitlement and a fundamental lack of moral character. Landon's face was white. I sentence you to 30 years in federal prison. Eligibility for parole after 20 years served. She banged the gavel. Bailiff, remove them. Federal marshals approached. Vance turned to look at Emma one last time. Their eyes met across the courtroom. He opened his mouth, started to speak. Emma shook her head once. No. Whatever he wanted to say, she didn't need to hear it. He'd said enough. The marshals led him away. The last Emma saw of Holland Vance was the back of his silver head disappearing through the side door. Gone. Finished. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. Weak winter sun broke through clouds. Quinn appeared beside Emma on the steps. How do you feel? Emma thought about it. Really thought. Empty, relieved, angry it took this long. She looked at Quinn, but mostly just tired. What now? Now I go home, start building something that matters. Dalton joined them, leaning more heavily on his cane today. The stress of the trial had taken its toll. Your father would be so damn proud, he said. Emma's throat tightened. I wish he could see this. Maybe he can. Beth and Sawyer stood together a few steps away. The kid had filled out since the trial started lifting weights, eating better. The testimony had been cathartic. He'd faced his fear, spoken his truth. It had changed him. Thank you, Beth said to Emma, for giving us the chance to be part of this, to matter. Emma shook her head. You always mattered. You just needed someone to listen. Claire Winters approached, the business owner. She looked lighter, like a weight had been removed. I closed my account with Vance's bank yesterday, she said. Moved everything to a credit union. It felt good, taking that power back. Frank Morrison nodded. He'd done the same. I'm selling my business, moving to Montana, starting over somewhere Vance's shadow doesn't reach. Emma understood. Sometimes the only way to heal was to leave. That evening, Emma sat alone in her hotel room. Diesel curled on the bed. Garrett had taken Maverick for a walk, given Emma space to process. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, but curiosity made her open it. The message was simple. Your father was my friend. What you did honors his memory. Thank you. T. Morrison, SEAL Team 3. Emma stared at the screen. She'd never met T. Morrison, didn't know if he'd been at the funeral, if he'd served with her father in those final months. But he'd been there, somewhere, part of the brotherhood, and he'd been watching. She typed a reply. Thank you for your service, and for remembering him. The response came immediately. We never forget our brothers, or their families. Hoo-yah. Emma set down the phone, lay back on the bed, Diesel shifted, put his head on her chest, heavy, warm, alive. Emma closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt something like peace. 4 months after the sentencing, Emma stood in front of 30 acres of Oregon forest. The land deed was in her name, purchased with money from three sources, her savings. $30,000 scraped together over 7 years of police work, a federal victim compensation fund, $50,000 awarded to families of victims of violent crime, and an anonymous donation, $100,000, wired from an offshore account with a note that read simply, "For Wyatt's girl, build something that lasts." Emma suspected Garrett. He denied it with a straight face, but she caught him smiling when he thought she wasn't looking. The land was raw, uncleared, dense forest, a creek running through the southern section, rocky soil, hard winters. Perfect. Emma stood at the edge of the tree line, Diesel beside her. The dog was moving slower these days. 10 years old now, gray in his muzzle, arthritis in his hips, but his eyes were still bright, still watching, still protecting. Quinn pulled up in a truck, stepped out with rolled blueprints. "Got the permits approved," she said. "Construction can start next week." Emma unrolled the plans on the hood. 2 buildings, one for training, one for housing, kennels for 20 dogs, an obstacle course, classroom space, living quarters for handlers during the intensive training program. Everything designed with input from veterans, from trainers, from people who understood what healing looked like. "It's perfect," Emma said. "It's a start." Garrett arrived in his truck, Maverick in the passenger seat. The old dog was limping, worse. 12 years old, every day a gift. "Ready to break ground?" Garrett asked. "More than ready." They spent the afternoon marking locations, where the buildings would go, where the obstacle course would run, where the memorial garden would sit. That last one was Emma's idea, a place to honor working dogs who'd given everything. Diesel would be the first. Not yet, but someday. When his time came, he'd rest here, in the place he'd helped create. By sunset, the layout was complete. Emma stood at what would be the entrance, looked at the forest, the mountains beyond, the sky turning pink and gold. "This is good land," Dalton said. He'd driven out to help, to see the dream taking shape. "It's perfect," Emma replied. "What are you going to call it?" Emma had thought about this for months, considered dozens of names, but only one felt right. The Captain Wyatt Hayes Memorial K-9 Training Center. Garrett nodded, approval in his eyes. He'd be honored. He'd probably say it was too much, which is exactly why it's the right amount. Construction began in March. Emma worked alongside the contractors, hammering, sawing, carrying lumber, digging post holes. She'd never built anything before. It felt good, creating instead of destroying, building instead of breaking. Garrett showed up every day, never asked if he was needed, just started working. Quinn handled the business side, permits, insurance, incorporation as a nonprofit, the endless paperwork that made things official. Dalton recruited veterans, spread the word through VFW halls and VA hospitals and online forums where broken soldiers tried to find each other. By May, they had 15 applications, all veterans, all struggling, all looking for purpose. Emma interviewed each one personally. A Marine who'd lost both legs in Afghanistan, wanted to prove he could still train a dog, still contribute. An Army Ranger with PTSD so severe he couldn't hold a job. But he'd been a dog handler in Iraq. It was the only thing that made sense to him anymore. A Navy corpsman who'd come home and tried to drink away the memories. Failed, looking for a reason to stay sober. A female Air Force veteran who'd been assaulted by a fellow service member. Found she only trusted dogs now. Wanted to rebuild that trust with people. Emma accepted 12, the first class. In June, the buildings were finished. Basic, functional, nothing fancy, but solid, built to last. The dogs arrived in July, 12 German Shepherds, rescued from shelters and failed police training programs and owners who didn't understand them. Too old for active duty, too energetic for civilian life, too damaged for easy adoption. Perfect for veterans who understood what it meant to be too much and not enough at the same time. Emma matched each dog with a handler. Not randomly. She watched, studied, looked for connections. The Marine with no legs got a 3-year-old female named Atlas. High energy, needed a handler who wouldn't quit. The Ranger with PTSD got an 8-year-old male named Ghost. Calm, patient, knew when to push and when to just be present. The corpsman got a 5-year-old female named Hope. Gentle, intuitive, had been trained as a therapy dog, but washed out for being too protective. The Air Force veteran got a 6-year-old male named Titan. Strong, loyal, had been a police K-9 but retired after being injured in the line of duty. The matches were imperfect. That was the point. Healing wasn't about finding perfection. It was about finding someone who understood your scars. The program was 12 weeks, intensive, dawn to dusk. Week 1 was basics, obedience, communication, learning to read your dog. Week 2 through 4 was specialized training, search and rescue, therapy work, protection. Each team found their strength. Week 5 through 8 was real-world application, taking the dogs into public, dealing with distractions, building confidence. Week 9 through 11 was certification prep. Teams practiced scenarios, refined skills, learned to trust each other completely. Week 12 was testing, pass or fail, no participation trophies. These dogs would be working. Lives would depend on them. The standards had to be high. Emma taught most of the classes herself. Garrett handled advanced tactics, search and rescue scenarios, how to read terrain, how to keep your dog safe in dangerous situations. Quinn managed logistics, made sure everyone had what they needed. Dalton showed up twice a week to talk to the veterans, share his story, remind them they weren't alone. The first class was hard. 2 handlers quit in week 3, couldn't handle the pressure, the structure, the expectations. Emma didn't judge them. She helped them find other programs, gentler ones, better suited to where they were in their healing. The remaining 10 pushed through. By week 12, they moved like teams, handler and dog, perfectly synced. The Marine who'd lost his legs could command Atlas through complex obstacle courses from his wheelchair, the dog responding to hand signals and voice commands with absolute precision. The Ranger with PTSD slept through the night for the first time in 5 years. Ghost curled beside his bed, a warm presence that said, "You're safe." The corpsman stayed sober. Hope gave him a reason to wake up, to stay clean, to believe tomorrow might be better than today. The Air Force veteran laughed again, real laughter, not the brittle kind that hid pain. Titan had shown her that trust was possible, even after betrayal. On graduation day, Emma stood in front of 10 teams, 10 veterans, 10 dogs, all of them transformed. "You came here broken," Emma said. "Told yourselves you were too damaged, too lost, too far gone." She looked at each face. "Your dogs didn't believe that. They saw what you really are. Warriors, survivors, people worth saving." She gestured to the dogs sitting perfectly at their handlers' sides. "These animals didn't give up on you. Don't give up on them. Don't give up on yourselves." The Marine raised his hand. "What happens now? After we leave here, now you work, you serve. You show the world that veterans aren't broken. We're experienced. There's a difference." Emma pulled out 10 certificates, hand calligraphed by Quinn, each one unique. "These certifications mean you and your dog are a team, qualified to work search and rescue, therapy, service, whatever path you choose." She handed them out one by one. When she reached the Air Force veteran, the woman's eyes were wet. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for believing I could do this." Emma squeezed her shoulder. "I didn't make you do anything. You did the work. You earned this." After the ceremony, there was food, a barbecue, nothing fancy. Just burgers and hot dogs and people who'd survived hell learning to enjoy simple things again. Emma stood apart, watching. Garrett appeared beside her. "You built something real," he said. "We built something real." "Your father built it. We're just the contractors." Emma smiled. He'd probably say it was too much attention, that the work matters more than recognition. Which is why the name matters. It reminds people that heroes aren't myths, they're real. And their legacies continue through people like you. Emma looked at the graduates, at the dogs playing in the yard, at the buildings that hadn't existed 6 months ago. "What's next?" she asked. "Class 2, applications are already coming in. 23 so far. We only have space for 12. Then we expand, build more kennels, another classroom, hire more instructors." Emma thought about it. "That takes money. Quinn's already working on grants, federal funding for veteran programs, private donors. It's there. We just have to ask." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." That night, Emma sat in her cabin, the one she'd built on the property. Small, one room, just enough. Diesel lay by the fire, breathing steady, content. Emma pulled out a notebook, started writing. Plans for Class 2, improvements to the program, ideas for expansion. She wrote for 2 hours when she finally stopped, her hand cramped. But the notebook was full, the future sketched in ink. A year after the first graduation, Emma received a letter. Federal Correctional Institution, Terre Haute, Indiana. Maximum security, where the worst of the worst served their time. The return address said H. Vance. Emma stared at the envelope for a long time. Part of her wanted to burn it unopened, but curiosity won. She slit the envelope carefully. Inside was a single page, handwritten, neat script. Officer Hayes, I have spent a year thinking about what I did. To you, to your father, to everyone in Pine Ridge. I want you to know that I understand now what I couldn't see before. I destroyed lives because I was afraid. Afraid of being poor, afraid of being powerless, afraid that without money and control I was nothing. I was right. Without those things I am nothing. But I was wrong about everything else. You won. Not because you were stronger or smarter, but because you were willing to lose everything for what you believed in. I wasn't. And that's why I'm here, and you're free. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your father died a hero. He stood up when everyone else sat down. He fought when others looked away. You are his legacy, more than any medal or monument could ever be. I hope you build something that lasts. Holland Vance. Emma read it twice, then she walked outside, built a small fire in the pit behind her cabin, watched the letter burn. She didn't need his acknowledgement, didn't need his understanding. She had something better. Purpose, peace, a life built on truth instead of lies. The smoke rose into the night sky, carried the words away. Emma didn't watch it disappear. She turned and walked back inside, where Diesel waited, where the plans for Class 3 sat on her table, where tomorrow held promise instead of pain. 5 years after the trial, the Captain Wyatt Hayes Memorial K-9 training centers had expanded to 3 locations: Oregon, Montana, Texas. 147 teams trained and certified, 0 failures, every graduate working, saving lives, making a difference. Emma was 40 now, gray threading her auburn hair, lines at the corners of her eyes from squinting into the sun. She wore those lines with pride. They were earned. Diesel had died 18 months earlier, age 12, peacefully, in his sleep, surrounded by people who loved him. Emma had been holding his head when he took his last breath, whispering thank you over and over. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for everything. They'd buried him in the memorial garden at the Oregon Center. Full honors, flag draped over his grave, taps played by a Marine who'd graduated Class 2. 23 working dogs attended, all graduates of the program, all standing at attention with their handlers. Emma had cried, not ashamed. Grief was love with nowhere to go, and she'd loved that dog more than she'd known she could love anything. His marker was simple: K9 Diesel, badge 247, hero, partner, friend. Emma visited every morning, brought a tennis ball, set it on the grave. Diesel had never been much for toys, but Emma liked the idea of him having one now, in case dog heaven had fetch. Today she brought someone new to the garden, a German Shepherd puppy, 10 weeks old, black and tan, ears too big for his head. This is Nova, Emma told Diesel's grave. He's going to be my new partner. Not for police work, for demonstrations, for showing new handlers what's possible. The puppy tried to eat the tennis ball. Emma gently redirected him. I miss you every day, she said to Diesel, but you taught me everything I needed to know. Now I get to teach others. She stood. Nova tried to follow, tripped over his own feet. Recovered with puppy resilience. Emma smiled. Come on, kid. We've got work to do. She walked back to the main building. Garrett was waiting on the porch, 70 now, moving slower, more gray than dark in his hair, but still strong, still present. Maverick had died 2 years earlier. He and Diesel were buried side by side in the memorial garden. Brothers in service, brothers in rest. Class 7 starts Monday, Garrett said. How many at 22? Biggest yet. Emma felt the familiar flutter of nerves. Every new class was a test. Could they maintain the standard? Could they serve everyone who needed help? Could they honor the name they carried? We're going to need more instructors, Emma said. Already on it. 3 candidates coming for interviews next week, all former handlers, all graduates of other programs. Good. They stood together, watching the sun set over the mountains. The view never got old. You ever think about retiring? Emma asked. Garrett was quiet for a moment. Every day. But, but then I meet a new veteran, see the hope in their eyes when they meet their dog. And I remember why I'm here. Emma understood perfectly. This wasn't a job. It was a calling. 7 years after Holland Vance went to prison, Emma stood in Arlington National Cemetery. She'd made the trip alone, left Nova with Garrett. The young dog didn't travel well yet. Section 60, where the newest heroes rested. Row after row of white marble, perfectly aligned, each one a story, each one a sacrifice. She found her father's marker easily. She'd been here a dozen times over the years, but this visit felt different. Captain Wyatt Hayes, born 1975, died 2009, SEAL Team 3. Emma knelt, set down a folder. Inside were photographs. The Oregon Center, all 22 teams from Class 7, dogs and handlers, smiling. The Montana Center, expansion completed 6 months earlier. Double the capacity, the Texas Center, ground broken last month, opening in the fall, and newspaper clippings. Stories about graduates, lives saved, families reunited, a Marine with PTSD who'd been ready to end his life. His service dog had sensed the crisis. Got help, saved him. A search and rescue team from Class 4 who'd found a missing child in the mountains. 3 days lost, hypothermic, alive because a veteran and his dog refused to quit. A therapy dog who worked with children at a VA hospital, helping kids understand that their deployed parents were heroes. That sacrifice meant something. We graduated our 200th team last month, Dad, Emma said quietly. 200 veterans who found purpose. 200 dunks who got second chances. The wind moved through the trees. I'm opening a 4th center in North Carolina and a 5th in Colorado. By next year, we'll be in all 50 states. She traced his name on the marble. Quinn runs Oregon now. I'm traveling, training new instructors, building partnerships, making sure the work continues. She pulled out a letter, official White House letterhead. The president wants to meet me, give me some kind of award for veteran services. I said yes, not for me, for you, so people remember what you did, why this matters. She folded the letter carefully. Garrett says hi, he's doing good. Training the next generation of instructors. Nova's learning fast. He'll never be Diesel, but he's his own kind of brave. She stood, looked at the endless rows of markers. I'm okay, Dad, better than okay. I'm doing what you taught me, protecting people who can't protect themselves, standing up when it's easier to sit down, choosing courage over fear. She placed her hand on the marble. I love you, I miss you, and I promise I'll keep making you proud. She walked back through the cemetery, past thousands of markers, thousands of stories. Her father was one, but his story wasn't over. It lived in her, in the training centers, in every veteran who found hope in a dog's eyes, in every handler who learned that broken and useful weren't opposites. 10 years after the trial, Emma stood on a stage in Washington, D.C., the White House behind her, press cameras in front. She wore a simple dress, navy blue, professional, no uniform. Those days were behind her. The president stood beside her, reading from prepared remarks. Emma Hayes represents the best of American service. Following in her father's footsteps, she has dedicated her life to helping those who served our nation find purpose and healing. The Captain Wyatt Hayes Memorial K-9 training centers have transformed hundreds of lives, given hope to the hopeless, purpose to the lost. The president turned to Emma. It is my honor to present you with the Presidential Citizens Medal for extraordinary service to fellow citizens and country. Emma accepted the medal. Heavy, gold, beautiful. She looked out at the crowd, saw Garrett in the front row, wearing a suit that looked uncomfortable, but smiling. Saw Quinn beside him, holding her daughter, the next generation. Saw graduates from all 7 classes, veterans and dogs, all of them standing at attention. Saw strangers, people who'd heard the story, who believed in second chances. Emma stepped to the microphone. Thank you, Mr. President, but this medal doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Captain Wyatt Hayes, who taught me that legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's the people you inspire to keep fighting. She held up the medal. It belongs to every veteran who's walked into our centers, broken and walked out whole. To every dog we've rescued and retrained. To every instructor who's given their time and expertise. Her voice strengthened. It belongs to Quinn Bishop, who lost her husband to corruption and chose to fight back instead of giving up. To Dalton Reed, who at 70 years old proved that age is just a number when purpose was. To Sawyer Mitchell, who at 18 had more courage than most people find in a lifetime. She looked directly at the cameras. And it belongs to everyone who's ever stood up when it was easier to sit down. Who fought when it was safer to run? Who chose truth over comfort? She paused. My father died fighting for what he believed in. This medal honors his sacrifice. But the real honor is continuing his work. Every day, with every veteran we serve, every dog we save, every life we change. She stepped back. The crowd stood, applauded. Emma didn't feel triumphant. She felt grateful. That night, Emma sat in her hotel room, the medal on the nightstand, Nova asleep on the bed. Her phone buzzed, a text from Garrett. Your father would have been so proud today. Hell, I'm proud. You've built something that will outlast all of us. Emma typed a reply. We built it, all of us. That's what makes it matter. She set down the phone, looked at the medal again, thought about the journey, from a warehouse where she'd hung helpless to a stage at the White House, from a K-9 officer in a small town to the director of a national organization, from a daughter carrying guilt to a woman carrying purpose. The road had been hard, painful, worth it. She turned off the light, lay down beside Nova. The puppy shifted, put his head on her chest the way Diesel used to. Heavy, warm, alive. Emma closed her eyes and slept without nightmares, because the ghosts were finally at peace. And so was she. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And if you've ever seen courage triumph over evil in your own life, we'd love to read it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story of loyalty, faith, and courage. Before you go, let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of courage, for people like Emma Hayes who refuse to let evil win, for service members like Captain Wyatt Hayes who sacrifice everything for freedom, for animals like Diesel who serve with loyalty that shames our human failings. May you guard every veteran struggling tonight, every handler training a dog, every person who feels broken beyond repair. Remind them that you specialize in rebuilding broken things, that scars are proof of survival, not shame. Give us the strength to stand when it's easier to sit, to fight when it's safer to run, to choose truth even when lies are more comfortable. And Lord, bless every working dog, every K-9 hero, every animal that serves humanity with pure hearts and unwavering loyalty. In Jesus' name, amen. A righteous person cares for the needs of their animal. Proverbs 12:10. Emma Hayes now directs 5 training centers across the United States, serving over 400 veteran handler teams. K-9 Diesel lived to age 12, retired with full honors. His legacy continues in every dog trained at the centers, bearing his handler's father's name. Captain Wyatt Hayes' sacrifice was not in vain. His daughter ensures that every day, through every veteran served, every dog saved, every life transformed. God bless our veterans, our K-9 heroes, and those who refuse to let evil have the final word. What would you risk everything for? Comment below. Where are you watching from? May God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he give you peace. Amen.